You can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thank you for showing up. Anyone here for the first time? Those you here for the first time, what brings you here? Who wants to share? Nobody now.
I'm here for the first time. My name is Zach. I'm just visiting. I'm from PA.
Nice.
My uncle, but
Yeah. What part of PA?
saying hi. Pittsburgh.
Nice. I lived in Philly for a year. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to experience East Coast. 1 year was enough, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cold right now. I'm
Yeah.
enjoying it.
Well, welcome to San Diego. Yeah. What brings you here?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm with some friends and I'm in recovery.
Yeah. Nice. Well, glad you're here. Welcome. Oh, go ahead.
Salvador, recovery as well. I mean, I hear so many people, my friends talk about it, so I just came to see
Yeah.
this place.
We pay him a lot to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Glad you're here.
I'm in the recovery facility,
Yeah.
and this is one of the meetings that they offered.
Yeah. Nice. Well, glad you're here. Welcome. Anybody else? First time want to share why they're here?
Hi.
Hi.
Christine, it's my first time.
Say again.
Christine, it's my first time.
Welcome.
I was invited by a friend, but my friend didn't show up.
Nice.
Catch the vibe and she was like,
Yeah. Well, I give you a lot of credit for showing up anyways, you know? Yeah. I've been doing prison work about 23 years. And after many years, I started training people to, lead meditation, Buddhist stuff inside. And one of my favorite ways to train them was to kind of get them all prepared before and tell them I'd meet them there, like a quarter till we were supposed to go in. I just didn't show up, and then they were stuck. Like, that's just kind of the best way to learn, sink or swim. But I give you credit for being brave enough to, to stay, I should say. Yeah. Glad you're here. Anybody else? Why show up? Those of you keep coming back, why keep coming back? Yeah.
it reminds me to stay present.
Stay present. Yeah, the reminders are key for sure. What else?
I learned new ways on how to practice loving kindness and compassion.
Mm.
So last week we talked about being generous. So like the past week I keep thinking about that.
Yeah.
Saying hi to people when it makes me super uncomfortable, or shooting someone a smile and like maybe look like they're having a rough day.
For sure.
That's fostered that feeling of loving kindness.
It's hard to do, right?
It's not easy. It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable, for sure.
Uncomfortable. Yeah, absolutely. That's why we call it a practice. It's like, and it's silly to think that like it would be so hard to smile at somebody or say hello, or like being nice.
Ego, though, right?
Say again.
It's your ego. For me, like,
Yeah.
Oh, what if they reject me when I'm trying to, give a branch out or like, be supportive.
Yeah,
Yeah, it just shows me a lot of some of the limitations that I have.
for sure. And that's that Bodhisattva practice of generosity, which is to give without any expectation of anything in return. So as you smile and say hello and throw all your kindness into the world, whatever they throw back to you, that's their mess, not yours, you know? So yeah, Emily.
I keep coming back because I always find something here, whether it's in meditation, some bit of wisdom comes up, or but mostly what I love about coming here is people sharing the different stories, sharing the questions.
Yeah.
I always see myself in them in some way.
Totally.
Something I haven't thought of before, just like a way to look at something that I haven't thought of before. So always when I come here, there's always something about it.
Yeah, definitely. Always my favorite. Yeah.
This is a little circular, but like when I came here, people were here for me when I got here. It wasn't an empty room. And because of that, I feel like I have to be here so when newcomers come, it's not an empty room.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like pay it forward.
Yeah. And that really is. I mean, we talk about the taking refuge in the Sangha. Sangha, for those who don't know, that third thing we said, Sangha is community. And it's just the people that you spend time with, and the people that you spend time with in a, any sort of way are hopefully cultivating a sense of, kindness, compassion, and safety, and helping us deal with the madness, because the craziness in the world, the craziness in your head, it's not going away anytime soon. It's been there a long time. I hate to break it to you. But the question is, how do you deal with it? How do you deal with all the madness that's in your head? And that's where community comes in and really creates opportunities for us to rely on each other for support. And it really is one of the greatest things, recovery-based or not, to be able to recognize that we're all here supporting each other, yeah. All right. So with that, go ahead. Anna.
I just say, I also feel the sacredness in this space. All this time that people have been coming here for peace and quiet and meditation in group.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel it the second you're walking around.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's funny too, last thing I'll say before we do the meditation is, when Maggie and I first walked in here in 2016, I don't know if you've heard me say this, but the church had been boarded up for about 6 months, roughly. Church is 99 years old now, coming up on 100 years. And they were here for 90 years. And when we walked in those doors, it was kind of closed off and a little musty and things like that. But when we stepped inside there, the feeling that you're talking about that people experience often here, that was here. So, I did my 20 minutes research on who were the Swedenborgians and what did they do in this building for 90 years. They did a lot of good stuff. And that feeling, that presence, that stillness, that sacredness of the space was here. Now, obviously, we now are the caretakers of that, and we add to that, and we hold it. But that's what's special about this building and this space. It's been sacred for 100 years, So really, really special. And that's why I always feel so fortunate for us to be here, All right, so with that, we'll start with the meditation practice. To those who are joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Feel free to say hello as you are. Thanks. And for those of you who are sick, hope you feel better and glad you stayed home. Thank you for staying home. That's also a generous practice to be sick and stay at home so you're not getting us sick. But feel free to say hello. A couple things to tell you before we begin, especially for those who are new. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos, and this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture. You just want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third. If you're on a bench or chair, just trying to sit up straight, relaxing the shoulders, hands are on the knees or lap, whatever's comfortable. Just a reminder, you're not trying to think nothing. You're not trying to shut your mind off. It will not go blank. Your mind will continue to race. I will say things periodically to remind you that you're lost in thought and bring you back to present moment, or to wake you up because you have fallen asleep. Most important with this practice, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. Starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. We'll start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, feel them fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from your practice. Just sitting. Breathing. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet. Wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe, knowing with each breath there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, and no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move, and most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's not from anything I said. It's not from how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's not from the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different. from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one, is not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. And the present moment, as we all know all too well, is filled with conflict, chaos, difficulty, challenges. Everything's a mess. This practice is learning to be with life as it arises. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation isn't going to fix that. It helps you become aware of your life that's a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess so you can actually make changes in your life. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of everything you think, everything you say, and everything you do. That's it. We spend so much time trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us. This practice is about taking care of what you think, what you say, and what you do. And that doesn't mean you ignore what's happening around us. Work hard, fight to create a world you want to see, but come from a place of love and kindness and compassion, not from hatred and anger. And way too many people spend too many years of their life just filled with anger, hatred, rage, being pissed off at everything and everyone. Spent 30 years of my life that way. That was no fun. Absolutely miserable. And it's really easy to blame everybody else too. I'm sure none of you blame anyone for anything. I'm sure you've taken full ownership and responsibility for all your madness. And that doesn't mean that other people's actions haven't deeply impacted us. A lot of people in this room gone through a lot of trauma and heavy stuff. It's not to take that away or discount that or set that aside as if it didn't happen or it's not the life you've lived. It is. But to my knowledge, it's impossible to change anything that's happened to us in the past. That's it. So the question is, what do you do in this current situation going forward? And you have a choice. You can continue to be angry and pissed off and miserable at everything and everyone that hasn't gone your way and point fingers and blame and make excuses. Or you can take ownership of your life now and work on what you think, what you say, and what you do. The Buddha called this karma. To me, the Buddha was just a really smart dude. His name was Siddhartha Gautama. He lived 2,500 years ago. Died when he was 80. And for the last 2,500 years, people have been looking at, what did this guy say? And I always see him as someone who really understood the way the nature of the mind worked. He understood how the mind worked and how all of our thoughts and all of our words and all of our actions create our reality and our environment. He understood karma. Karma is not what goes around, comes around. Karma is not getting what you deserve or they're going to get what's coming to them. That is not karma. That's just wishing ill will on people, right? Let's be clear about that. You want to wish ill will on people, that's up to you, but that's not karma. Karma is literally translates to the word action. And we generate karma action three ways: body, speech, mind. What we think, what we say, and what we do creates your world. So the practice, very basic teaching, is to be mindful and aware of your karma. Not what you're getting, not what's coming to you, but what you think, what you say, and what you do. And that can be quite shocking. That's why this practice is not for everybody. Because if you are actually honest with yourself and you sit down and look in the mirror and say, wow, what do I think? Man, that's a mess. I mean, I'm just talking about myself. I can't, you know? And then you ask yourself, what am I actually saying all day long? How am I communicating? What am I expressing? I don't mean just talking, but, you know, typing, posting, all that kind of stuff. How do we express ourselves? What do we say? And if you look at that honestly, for many people, it's not pleasant. You know, I mean, I spend a majority of my life spending all day long just talking miserable things about everybody else. I'm sure, again, none of you talk bad about anyone else. And then looking at what you do. How do you spend your time all day long? Are you in situations that are healthy, wholesome, bringing a sense of peace and compassion to your life? Or are you just creating havoc? So that's why this practice is holding up a mirror. It's not learning about the Buddha or his life. I mean, yeah, you can use it as inspiration and things like that, but he died, man. His life ain't going to help you. Sorry, folks, you're on your own. Good luck. Right? So we look at his life and we say, okay, well, how can I take accountability for my life? And if you don't want to be miserable, then make changes. It's that simple. So easier said than done, of course, but that's why we call it a practice. So with that, I'll pause. I always prefer to respond to questions as well. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with, and we use the rest of our brief time for questions. To those who are joining virtually, again, welcome. Glad you're here. Feel free to say hello as you are in the chat box. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to respond as well. So open up to questions. Yeah.
So I've been struggling with having compassion lately. And there's just a lot of stuff happening, and I feel like compassion is saying that I accept certain things.
Sure.
And that can feel isolating.
Yeah.
I don't know that Buddhism is here to make friends, but it can just feel very isolating. So I would just love your perspective on like kind of compassion. Is it acceptance? And
is it what? What was the last part you said?
Acceptance.
Oh, acceptance. Okay. Yeah. No, it's not. Compassion, and I'll expand on this because for many obvious reasons, it's been the topic recently. But let's see which way I'm going to start. Well, I'll just continue with this thought. So having compassion, right? This idea of over Buddhist teaching, second noble truth, right? The first one is life is filled with dukkha, discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction. You'll read it as life is suffering, right? It doesn't mean all of life sucks. It just means you're going to struggle a lot throughout your life. Heavy, traumatic things, death, loss, things like that. And little things, you don't like your latte, you don't like the way your sandwich made, you don't like the way your shirt looks on you, the traffic isn't moving how you want it, little stuff. You suffer all day long, some extreme and some minor. The second noble truth is the cause of suffering: greed, anger, ignorance. And the practice of overcoming greed is generosity, anger is compassion, and ignorance is wisdom. So to this compassion thing, having love and compassion for all beings does not mean you agree with them. It doesn't mean what they're doing is good or right. It doesn't mean you're in approval. But let me ask you this. You ever been angry and pissed off? Yeah, thank you. I love I knew that would be your answer, but often people are like, well, wait, no. It's like, come on, really? So you've been angry and pissed off. And when you're angry and pissed off, you did things potentially that harmed yourself or others, right? We've all been in those situations. Now, when you were angry and pissed off, if somebody came to you with more anger, did that calm you down? Did that make you feel better? Stick with this about you. Don't parallel. Stick with that question. If you were angry, it would make you feel what? Yeah, I don't believe you. So if you're angry and you're pissed off and someone comes at you with anger, that would make you feel heard?
No. So they're not, okay, I see what you're saying. No, that would not. Yeah.
How would it make you feel? If you're angry, pissed off, and you did something that harmed somebody and other people or that person came at you with anger, how would that make you feel? More angry. Should I continue? You get it? Now, what you've done in that situation was coming from a place of anger and hatred and upset and whatever it is. Your views in that moment led you to be angry and inflict anger in whatever way you did it on somebody else. And we're not drawing parallels here. I'm not comparing angers, and the world is a disgusting mess and there's horrific things going on. So this isn't about drawing parallels here. So if you're doing that right now, my suggestion is to drop that. I'm just talking to everybody. But in that moment when you're angry, what actually makes you feel better? Love, compassion, to calm you down so you can feel less anger and less hatred in your heart. And then maybe you'll respond differently. So this idea of sending and having love and compassion for all people doesn't mean that what people are doing is okay. In that moment that somebody gives you love and compassion and a hug to try to make you feel better, doesn't excuse what you just did to somebody. It doesn't make it okay. It doesn't validate it. It doesn't make it good. You still treated somebody in that situation like crap. We've all been there. I spent most of my life there. So when I was treating people that way, if people were pissed off at me for that, it just made me more angry. And I did more harmful things. It wasn't until I started to actually feel love in myself, which came from opening up to the love that I was seeing from others, that I began to change. It wasn't the anger. It was love and compassion. And so for me, when I look at people who do what I consider just disgusting things, and I practice having love and compassion for them, I am in no way saying what they're doing is good or right or okay. But I know that if I throw more hatred and anger at them, you're just adding fuel to the fire. This is an extreme, but and you may have heard me use this example, the story of the Vietnamese Buddhist monk after the war in Vietnam, and they asked him what his greatest fear was while he was being tortured. And he said his greatest fear was losing compassion for the individual who was torturing him. Because what he knew was that the individual who was torturing him didn't need more hatred and anger. If you treat somebody that way, there must be so much hatred and anger going on already. People like that don't need more hatred and anger. So again, I know I'm repeating it like 5 times, but I'll repeat this every single day for the rest of my life. Having love and compassion for those people that cause harm is not about saying what they're doing is okay. It is not about, to use the word, acceptance. It's not about saying, well, I accept that they're treating people like that, so I'm going to give them love and compassion and close my eyes. No, this is not about us sitting in places of privilege and ignoring the horrific things that are going on in the world, As you've heard me say, I think the Buddha was his life. He was a rebel. He was an activist. It's what he did. He fought for what he believed in. And what he believed in was loving kindness and compassion for all beings, forgiveness for everyone for what they have done. This is not an easy practice. It doesn't mean we listen to one talk on having love and compassion for people and we're like, all right, I got it, But if you can walk out of here and have like 1% less hatred towards the people that you might have hatred towards right now, then that's 1% less. If you can open up to the possibility that you could have love for the people who are doing horrific things, then that creates space. And ultimately, what it also does, when you have hatred and anger towards other people, how does that make you feel? When you have hatred and anger towards others, how do you feel? Angry. And when you have love and kindness and compassion towards other people, how do you feel? Happy. But that's the hard part, because we often sit here in our places of whatever potential privilege and say, well, I can't have love and compassion for them and then feel happy because I'm supposed to feel like shit because the world is a mess. The world has always been a mess. Now we're just seeing it live in person. This has been going on forever. This is, as you know, this stuff is not new, right? And as I always say, and I just feel it's important for me to say, especially for those who don't know me, I sit here day in and day out with every privilege there is, white, heterosexual, able-bodied, male, and I have nothing to be afraid of. That's where I'm coming from. And so the question is, for those of us who do have privilege, how do we use that privilege? How do we use the privilege to create change? And I'm not going to hate myself and feel like shit because the world is a mess. I'm going to work my butt off to be peaceful and happy, because only in a place of being peaceful and happy? Do I have any drive, motivation, inspiration to go create change? If everyone who has the potential to be happy sits there miserable, who's fighting to create a better world? Nobody. That's, to me, what we're called to do in this practice on a very extreme level. That, to me, is the Bodhisattva practice. Really difficult. So, yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah.
So, kind of to follow up on a similar part of that. So, is it, I guess, what's the thought on being angry, disliking the action versus the person? Like if somebody's, molesting a child
Right.
or beating an animal, can I be like, I find that repulsive and disgusting and I hate that action.
Right.
But I have compassion for the person knowing that they probably have so much suffering going on that has led them to that action.
Yes, it's this very kind of fine line, especially for those who are new to Buddhism, and often, again, not to that question, but just let me say this in general for everybody. Often people think Buddhism may be this very passive thing where you're just going to like sit back and sit under a tree and watch the world happen as if nothing matters. Nonsense. The world matters. Things are happening. Wake up. This practice of Buddhist teachings, before I even get to that, because I just want to start here, is about waking up to everything that's happening. It is not about going to sleep. It is about waking up to the horrific things that are happening in the world and waking up to the beautiful things that are happening in the world and recognize these are all just things that are simultaneously happening in the world, right? With every horrific tragedy that occurs, something beautiful occurs. This is life. So with that in mind, to your point, when you see horrific things that are happening, right? Abuse on severe levels, nothing in Buddhism is saying that you're supposed to think that that's okay. Absolutely. I mean, if we sit there and watch these things and we think it's okay, then there's something wrong. We should see the disgusting nature of these situations. And yet, to echo what you said, understand that, wow, for somebody to do these types of things, what is in their mind is just horrific. So, and again, for me, it's someone I've spent 20 plus years working with people who've murdered and raped and done disgusting things. And the trauma and the things that they have experienced and gone through that led them to do those things also does not excuse what they have done. It also does not make what they're doing okay. To me, Buddhist practice is not about seeing these situations and saying these are good and okay. It's about understanding why things occur. But if you start to like those things that are going on, then that's a real problem, right? So, not easy. Yeah.
My name is Salvador. This is my first time here.
Welcome. We just started with some light topics here in this intro to Buddhism.
Wow. So I did have some questions because I hear this topic about anger and stuff, and I have a lot of beliefs currently myself. And I've always held a space where there's a space for fire and anger.
Sure.
Yeah, just as much as there is a space for water and being calm.
Sure.
And so I'm wondering, because what I'm hearing is kind of like this almost, I'm not going to say anti, because that sounds, but there's this kind of like need for fuzzies and warms, and this is kind of like something I grew up in.
Yeah.
And I'm very discerning, and I don't do fuzzy and warm all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the reality of the things going on in the world. Like you're acknowledging what you should be doing that, as a Latino living right now in California.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you acknowledging that, but I also, what I'm wondering is, does this Buddhist do you hold a place for fire, a place for anger? Because I know in other spaces of beliefs, we do.
Sure.
There is a time to be angry, and there is a time to act out.
Yeah, I mean, I say this very seriously. I don't mean this to elicit a joke, but do you sense any warm and fuzzy from me? No.
You're pretty adamant.
Yeah, I mean, and I've been at this a long time, and this practice is my life. And what I mean by that is, as an example, that it's not about, so in essence, what I'm hearing you say, especially for somebody who's brand new to Buddhism, is like, what is the Buddhist view on anger and gentleness and things like that? All of that occurs. The Buddhist view on that is anger arises. Love arises, right? Hatred arises. Forgiveness arises. All these emotions. What Buddhist teachings are all about is recognizing these emotions as they arise, being mindful and aware of what you do with it, and ultimately understanding where it's coming from. So when anger arises, which it has very often, when you act out of that anger, without justifying, without jumping to, well, anger is, creating the space for me to fight for change. I get it. I'm not going there with that. Set that aside for a minute. Everything else in your life, except for the current situation that you're referencing, right? When you were angry, did anything good ever come of your anger?
I usually justify myself because
I just said without justifying it.
I'm a Libra, so I can't help it.
None of this Libra shit, right? So no, the answer to that is no. I get it. So I hear you on wanting to understand, what did the Buddha teach about anger? The Buddha said that anger arises and it leads to tremendous suffering for you and those that have to deal with your anger. It is not warm and fuzzy and dismissing that. It's not pretending the anger isn't there. But it's understanding that anger comes from craving and desiring things to be different from how they are. This is what the Buddha taught. But he also did not teach to just ignore how things are. As I said, he spent 45 years. He walked alongside Martin Luther King. I always say this all the time, but Thich Nhat Hanh, not the Buddha, Thich Nhat Hanh marched with Martin Luther King. And Thich Nhat Hanh he passed away a couple years ago, but one of the most famous, well-known modern-day Buddhist monks, Vietnamese monk, peace activist, poet, incredible teacher, and spent his life sharing Buddhism in the West for much of it, many years. And Martin Luther King nominated him for a Nobel Peace Prize for his fight and work as a peace activist for social justice issues. So this is not about sitting in this place of privilege and saying everything's fine and warm and fuzzy while terrible things are happening. Not at all. But again, bring it back to you, your life, what's led you to make the choices you've made. Much of that comes from places of anger. And much of that anger comes from a place of craving and desiring things to be different. And when they're not, you get pissed off. I get the justification of how anger can be good. But so can love and compassion. And then you can also still fight for change. So fight for change from a place of love and compassion, not from hatred and anger. Unless you have the skill to make really wide choices as a person who's filled with hate and anger. And most people don't. Most people filled with hate and anger make really foolish choices that ruin their life and the life of those around them. But we are very good at justifying things. Yeah.
Could you touch on one of the precepts, say, wise speech?
Yeah.
For me, for instance, when I first read Jade, I think of lying, cruelty, stuff like that. But as I explored it further, I think sarcasm, and my biggest one is omission. So, because I find myself, I'm only lying to myself.
Right. Well, often when I talk about the precepts or even wise speech, right speech specifically within the Eightfold Path of right speech, one of the first things I talk about in this kind of refraining from lying is I often say that the person we lie to the most is ourselves. You ever told yourself a story about yourself over and over and over again for most of your life? And is that story true, or is it just some fabricated nonsense in your head? Right? Selective, right? So, but back out of that for a minute, this idea of right speech, right? Is it honest? Is it truthful? Is it necessary? Is it timely? Is it divisive? Do we gossip? Do we slander people? Divisive speech is one of the most common things where people are constantly speaking to draw some division, as if that helps. But again, this is kind of like the anger question. This is all coming from this attachment to the sense of self. And this idea that we often think Who's the most important person in the world? Ourselves. And so who are we always trying to make sure gets everything they want? Ourselves. And so that's really behind this idea of to refrain from lying or gossip or slander or anything like that. It's all about trying to make sure we get what we want and we feel better and we look better, right? I mean, so much of the reason people say terrible things about others is because it makes them feel good. It's not about whether other people are terrible or not. That's irrelevant. That's not the point. The point is, why are we constantly talking about how terrible other people are? As if we are, walking on water. Everyone in this room has caused harm. And this isn't a comparison of the harm that's been caused. But we all have caused harm and pain and suffering to self and others. And so I really look at this practice of to refrain from lying, right speech, which is what's behind it. And what's behind it is we're so afraid to just drop the ego, drop this attachment to sense of self, and go forward. But yeah, the lying to the self is years ago we'd done a 5 Precepts ceremony, and then like 2 days later, somebody showed up, and one of the guys showed up, and he said he had already like broken 4 of the 5 precepts, right? 2 days later, and he was talking about he was at the doctor, and he took an anonymous filled out an anonymous form, and he found himself lying on the anonymous form because he was so afraid to just be honest. And honesty and truth with so many things is something that a lot of people really struggle with. There's a, kind of Zen Buddhist expression, Dogen would say, you must get to know the self before you can forget the self or rid of the self. And so understanding that sense of self, the one that's so afraid to be honest and real and authentic and genuine, right? Again, Buddhism is not about you don't exist and you're not real and you're not here. Like, we are here. The mess that's here, we have to get to know that first. And if we're not honest with ourselves and we're in denial and we keep thinking everything is everyone else's fault and we don't have any anger and we're fine, then we're never actually going to do any spiritual work. We're just going to continue to be miserable. So that's the hard work. It's not easy. Yeah. Thanks. What else? Yeah.
Something that the conversation about compassion, looking at like atrocities happening, and it made me think of like, why am I struggling so hard with finding compassion when I'm seeing that stuff happening? Like you, I come from a place of privilege, right? So I say with a grain of salt, but most of my life, accountability and responsibility was shown to me through anger, and showing me you were doing something wrong, so I'm going to make you feel really, really bad about it.
Right.
And I see my reactions when I see those wrong things happening, wanting to do the same thing. So for me, this challenge or this practice is learning to respond in a different way, yet still know that I need to hold that person accountable and responsible for the things that they've done.
Yeah, and I think as you are, like, it's beautiful to see, like, you're working. You're doing the practice. You're becoming aware of how you work, of how your mind operates, how, no offense, how twisted and manipulated our minds actually are. And how we spent our entire life just making sure we get what we want. Like, that's literally what we all do. Again, no offense to the people that don't spend their lives trying to do that. And again, there's nothing wrong, again, for those who are new, there's nothing wrong with like getting what you want in life and being happy and peaceful. I'm not talking about that. But like so much of the stuff we crave and desire, and like, it's like we just hoard. We want all the happiness in the world for us and everybody else, And when we begin to see that, it's like, it's scary. And, to give you something to look forward to, like I'm still pretty disgusted by the majority of the thoughts that pop into my head. But the practice is think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. And so for me, it started, this practice was go do good deeds as much as possible. And then continue to speak good words. All of that follows, and it comes back to the thoughts. The thoughts that you've been, cycling with most of your life, that, they're not going to go away in 3 years. You've built like hardwired into your system. So those thoughts, the things you see, they're going to arise. But what you do with them is what matters. And can we just see them and let them pass and not act on them? That's where your life changes, and the people around you benefit from that. So it's creating space through meditation to have the thoughts that arise that might not be so pleasant, and just letting them pass until the pleasant ones arise. You're like, oh, here's a pleasant thought. Let's act on this one. It's like a video game in your head, and you're picking which button to kind of push. So what else we'll do? I think one more. Yeah, Greg, go ahead. 2 more and then we'll close. Yeah.
I just want to sort of for myself say this, like what I'm hearing and how I'm processing this. There are 3, it's kind of like my 3 major food groups for most of my life was like alcohol, chocolate, and meat for a long time. I've given up all of those.
Yeah.
But my 3 emotions were anger, fear, and shame. And in this practice, those are in me. Like those are buttons that are never going to go, and I have them. And today, for me, I see them as useful alarms, valuable alarms. If I'm angry, if I'm fearful, it's telling me to pay attention.
Yeah.
But then the question in the past was, then I just couldn't let go of it. I lived in the resentment, I lived in the fear, or I lived in the shame, and I took actions based on that. As opposed to what Buddhist practice teaches me is to step back at that moment. And compassion isn't even the right word for me, just the ability to objectively try to look at things, not from my selfish, like, how is this impacting me and me alone, but like what's actually going on here and what's the skillful thing to do.
And I think it was Salvador. Was that, so to kind of back to what Salvador said, like about the thing with anger, is that it's not thinking that all of a sudden anger is just going to disappear, that it's supposed to disappear, but when it arises, how can it be utilized and useful in a way without carrying the hatred and anger, but how can we use it as a motivation and inspiration, but still not allow it to destroy us? Or others.
At that point, I was like a crazy man.
Yeah.
I was angry.
Yeah.
I was not good to be around.
Yeah. No, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. One more and then we'll close. Yeah.
What is detachment and the relationship with action?
And the relationship with action? Yeah. So I'll close on this. So in Buddhism, the proper term is non-attachment, not detachment. Often people will say detached or unattached, and it sounds to me, at least the English language, very much like a cutting off or a severing of, that you don't care. Non-attachment actually is love. Non-attachment is love. It is being able to, you ever been in a relationship with somebody? All right, well, this will be easy. You pointed this way, so it made it super simple, right? Let's see, hang on, I have to think for a minute. Usually it's somebody from the past. Now that they're sitting right next to you, I don't want to cause a fight between the two, right? So, all right, so what's your name? Who asked the question? Davey? And this one's name? David. All right, Davey and David. That's cute. All right, Davey and David. So, Davey, you love David? Sorry to put you on the spot here. Yeah. Do you wish David would do everything you want him to do always? Why is everybody lying tonight? Really? You don't care what David does?
I want him to be free and still choose me.
Oh. That didn't sound twisted or controlling at all. You know? It's like, you can do whatever you want as long as Davey's okay with it, you know? So non-attachment is to love somebody, to care about them, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's a family member, whether it's a stranger. Often, very times, a great way to look at non-attachment is like to say small children, right? Someone raising small children, right? Small children and big children, which we all are, we're going to do dumb things, okay? We're going to do things that we shouldn't do. But when like a 2-year-old does it, the whoever is caretaking for the 2-year-old, not that they're happy that they did it, but they know that like the 2-year-old doesn't necessarily know what they're doing, right? They love them regardless. They understand that 2-year-olds are going to be 2-year-olds and they're going to do things they shouldn't do. Non-attachment says, I love them regardless. And so it doesn't mean that you should become a doormat and David in this case can just do terrible things and you're just supposed to say, okay, I'm okay with it. No, David, you cannot do those things, right? But non-attachment means you understand David has David's own life. David has a whole life that led up to this moment and has a whole series of mess in David's head and some wonderful things and some traumatic things and some great things and some bad things. David's got David's whole life's experience. And so does Davy. And so the two of you now come together and you're just like, oh shit, how's this going to work? But non-attachment says you're going to love David for everything that David is, good and bad, right and wrong, however you want to label it. Because David's going to do some wonderful things for you. And David's probably going to piss you off once in a while. But your love for somebody doesn't change. But it also doesn't mean that you just kind of in a similar vein as earlier questions. It also doesn't mean that at some point in time, if things get so extreme that you just stay and say, well, I'm Buddhist, I practice non-attachment, you can treat me like crap. No, there is a love and respect and care there and decency. But non-attachment is, in essence, the opposite of trying to control and manipulate and wanting the people to do everything you want them to just because you think it's right. Does that make sense?
If we practice non-attachment, like how do we combat like stagnation in action? So like if I'm accepting of everything as it is, and like thinking about like making the world a better place, but that's a better place from my perspective. How do I know like my version of a better place is what someone else would want?
So one, you won't, this practice is not about making sure that other people align with your view of a better world, first and foremost, right? But I think this idea, I still think you're caught up in thinking, so non-attachment doesn't mean, this idea of acceptance, to use your word. I don't like the word acceptance because what acceptance really says to me is that like you don't like what they're doing, but you'll accept them. So that's not non-attachment. Non-attachment is not acceptance. When you accept someone for who and how they are, wholly, like completely, it's without judgment. The way you just used the word acceptance was almost like you were saying, well, I don't like the way something or someone is, but I'll accept it. It's much deeper than that. It's actually just seeing them for who and how they are, period. But if we have to accept someone, what does that actually mean? We're not okay with how they are. Does that make sense? I'm not asking if you agree with it or can do it. I'm asking if it makes sense. Does it make sense intellectually? It's hard when we don't agree with things. Huh? Does it make sense? No? Well, let me ask you this. I'll close with this because we're about out of time, Davey. So when you typically accept something, are you saying I accept them because you don't necessarily like it or agree with it, but you'll accept it as a part of who they are? Okay, so this is what I'm talking about, is acceptance is still comes with judgment. You two can talk about this the rest of the night. If you turn to David and say, look, this is terrible about you, but I still accept you. What you're saying is this is terrible about you.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is non-attachment is not saying this is terrible. Non-attachment is saying this is you.
Okay.
Remove the judgment. Non-attachment is beyond judgment. Explain that to him later. Yeah? Okay, I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. All right, before y'all head out, our Dharma Bum host Eddie has a few announcements. Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm tonight's host, Eddie. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 19 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They're simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction, and our food redistribution program is every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and also posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and then bring it back whenever you are done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. A few people could stay to close and latch the windows. That would be helpful. Thank you for being here. We wish you well and hope to see you all again.
Thanks, Eddie. Thank y'all.